SGA wasn't going to allow his team to head home going down 3-1 with the Thunder trailing. He went off in the fourth, scoring 15 of his 35 in the final 5 minutes to help the Thunder come back and steal Game 4 from the Pacers. Now the series is a best of 3 heading back to OKC with the Thunder reclaiming home court advantage. Here's SGA on how we'll get the job done.
Learn the lessons. Learn the lessons from the past 4 games. And it's first team to 2 wins. Those 2 things, most importantly. 2 wins and you get the job done, and that's what I felt like I was focused on in the Denver series, and we were able to do so, and same thing for this series.
So the Thunder are still the heavy favorite to win the title at ESPN Bet Sportsbook, but the finals has been closer than predicted. This is the first series to have 3 of the first 4 games decided by single digits in the NBA Finals since 2015, when the Warriors beat the Cavs in Game 6. It has become a heck of a series, and we bring in head coach of the Detroit Pistons, JB Bickerstaff. JB, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Great to have you. So, Stephen
What's up, Coach? What's happening?
As we just mentioned, despite the Thunder coming in as huge favorite, the series, it's tied at 2. Does that say more about OKC or Indy?
Well, I think it says more about Indy. You could say both, either way you slice it, but I'm going to say it says more about Indy. We're going to give these folks credit. And I don't know how many people have been watching this series if you have OKC as a decisive favorite. At this point, this is a legit 2-2 series. You're looking at 4 games, and you can understand why they're split 2-2. We came into Indiana after games 1 and 2 saying these teams were going to split. They were going to come back to OKC 2-2 because we saw from games 1 and 2 how competitive this series is and can be. And you can't say enough. The MVP for the Indiana Pacers is Rick Carlisle. When you look at his coaching and some of the decisions that he has made and the way he has forced Oklahoma City to be uncomfortable, I can't say it enough. Coach, one of the things that I'm sure you've heard, I don't know whether you agree with this assertion or not, but there have been people out there that have been critical of Daigneault for this one thing above all else. How the hell do you go 68-14 and then you win 12 games in the postseason and you end up at 80-18, if I remember correctly, coming into the NBA Finals, and before one tip-off has arrived, you change your starting lineup? How the hell do you do that? Now, I understand they change some things from time to time, but that was people believing that Rick Carlisle was already in your head because of his genius as a coach and some of the changes that he can ultimately force you to make. And so I look at OKC being tight in waning moments outside of last game when SGA just took the hell over. I look at them being tight offensively. I look at the absence of production from some of the guys that we depended on to be productive. I see on the other side, it's Siakam 1 minute, it's Nesmith another, it's Halliburton another, it's Nembhard another, it's Mathurin another, okay? And TJ McConnell being a spark plug off the bench. And as you look at the Indiana Pacers, even though you still look at OKC, who's been the best team in basketball all season long, as a favorite, there is no doubt that it's close, and you expect practically everything to come down to the wire because we underestimated what Indiana could do and how it could match up. And by the way, Hartenstein, he's no factor in this series. All right, they basically taking him out. So if you're you're OKC, you got to go small. You got to put Holmgren at the 5. You got to do some things because Hartenstein ain't the guy. When he was in the game in the fourth quarter, we were like, where's Caruso? Get him back in the game. And sure enough, Daigneault brought him back in the game with under 4 minutes left. So I just look at it that way. It's a close series. It's more about Indiana right there.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, Stephen A. When you come down to it, I think the expectation was Oklahoma City was going to blow the Pacers out. But you got to give the Pacers a ton of credit for the game plan that Rick Carlisle put in place, the execution of it, and all their role players that have continued to step up and make big plays. Like you said, it's Nembhard, it's Nesmith. Halliburton makes a play when he needs to. Siakam makes a play when he needs to. And as far as, the changes Oklahoma City made early in the series, you go back and you do a ton of studying of film to see what works best and then what may have worked against your opponent best. The thought probably is we needed to find more speed to keep up with the Pacers' pace, so to speak. So they went to a smaller lineup, found more spacing with Holmgren at the 5. But, those are the decisions that you have to make in real time, in order to get to where you want to get to. But again, this is a balanced and an even series right now, and it's going to come down to a fourth quarter again to see what happens tonight.
I would agree with you, Coach. I would also say this series to me talks a lot about control versus chaos and the different styles and paces that each team wants to play. And obviously when you have double bigs, you can dominate on the boards. You know, obviously Indiana wants to get out and run. But I would agree with Stephen A. that look, the Pacers have been outkicking their coverage, and Wendy has been dropping numbers throughout the entire year about how they have been playing well down the stretch. I think just watching the way Rick Carlisle has coached this team, watching their continuity and the style in which they play, I think a lot of us thought that OKC was favored at first, but now watching the way these two teams have played, like this thing is going to go 7. It really feels like it's going to go 7. It's going to come down to the devil's in the details. And those details about how these teams execute down the stretch, control versus chaos, will reveal who the NBA championship is.
Wendy?
This has been a celebration of what has already been a tremendous playoff run for the Pacers. I mean, they are trying to win a third consecutive series without having home court advantage. That just doesn't happen. And, you know, before Game 4, I felt, just from watching the series and being a part of a lot of series over the last couple of decades, I felt that the team that won Game 4 would probably win the series. I'm stepping back from that because after watching this, I think it's kind of a little bit too close to call. I don't feel that strongly. You know, one of the things I thought was interesting, even going into the fourth quarter of Game 4, when the Pacers were ahead by 7 points, they were up by 10 late in the third quarter. Even up, 10 minutes away from being up 3-1 in the series, the betting markets still had OKC as the favorite. People don't want to it doesn't make sense. The computers and everything don't want to believe that the Thunder can lose this series. And I think that they can. I would still say that they're the favorite. Mm-hmm. I still believe that the Pacers can win this series.
Let me say this to you. You're right. They can still win this series. I think this is going 7. I think it's a pick'em series. I think it's that close. But when we're talking about the game of basketball, fellas, correct me if I'm wrong. We're all basketball minds up here. Think about this. When it comes to the game of basketball, what's usually the deciding factor when you have a pick'em situation?
Best player.
It's the team that has that one dude that you say, here's the basketball.
You're right.
They got schemes. They know what you're going to do. And there's a player that says, I don't give a damn what you know. I don't care what you think you have. I don't care what you've devised schematically. It don't matter because I'm that dude. And we've seen one player in this series show up and respond like that. That's not a shot with 0.3 seconds left. No shade on Halliburton because it was a big-time shot. He deserves a lot of credit for that. But that's entirely different than taking the hell over in the fourth quarter, scoring 15 of your team's last 16 points. Taking the ball and saying, move the hell out the way. I got this. Now that, in the sport of basketball, is what you're looking for when all else fails. That is what Oklahoma City has in SGA until further notice.
Jay?
I agree.
Okay, everyone's co-signing. SGA can take over, but I mean, if it comes down to a final shot, are you all agreeing it's SGA, or maybe you want Hallie?
I mean, hard for me to say because of Hallie's ability to close out games. Also hard for me to say because I think that Rick Carlisle, and I've heard him talk about this at the podium, JB, there's a lot of accountability on his part that he feels like he needs to put Hallie in the right situation. Mm-hmm. So the right situation, delivering Hallie to make the right play, I do trust in that. I do trust in that in a magnitude of a way.
All right, we got to leave it there because I want to get people paid. Stephen A., let's get some bets for tonight's game with our triple threat parlay. Stephen A., you have SGA getting 35 or more. Tell us why.
Because if you watch the finals, you know why. If you watch the playoffs, you know why. If you watch the regular season when he averaged 32, you know why. That's why. It's SGA. Somehow, he had a bad game and still dropped 25. This is what he does. So I don't see any reason why I would go against that. Game 5 on your home court, having won Game 4 on the road, series tied 2-2. You secure home court advantage and secure yourself in a worst-case scenario with a Game 7 at OKC by showing up in Game 5. This is the perfect opportunity for him to drop another 35 and just reinforce it who the hell he is.
All right, you've got Halliburton going for 8 or more assists. Is this easy money?
I don't think it's easy money, but I think he's going to accomplish it because I think on the road, he's going to be looking to create opportunities for other people. The Neesmith, the Nembhards, the Pascal Siakams. Obi Toppin, been very pleased with him, even though he struggled at certain intervals. But for the most part, I've been very pleased with what we've seen from him. I think Halliburton's going to feed all of these dudes, and I think that's where his 8 assists are going to come from on the road.
And finally, Chet Holmgren grabbing 10 or more rebounds. How come?
Well, I also think that's going to happen because Indiana's going to miss their fair shots because obviously it's a situation where you've got the #1 defense in basketball going up against them. Chet Holmgren is going to be in the game more so than Hartenstein, who's been played out of this game. And as a result, because he's going to be pretty much your lone big man in that lineup, Indiana's going to miss their fair share of shots. He's going to grab some rebounds.
NBA,